In this video, I will be going over an example on factoring cubic polynomials. This is the homework video for lesson 4.03, and in the problem that I'm going to do is I'm going to factor this polynomial here. I'm going to be factoring x cubed minus 2x squared minus 5x plus 6. So you know a couple of different methods of factoring. One is using sum and differences. One is using grouping, so I'm going to go ahead and try grouping first. And to do grouping, I'm going to take the first two terms, factor out the greatest common factor, and that is x squared. And I have left over on the inside x minus 2. And from this one, from the last two terms, I have minus 5x plus 6. There's nothing I can factor out there, so I'm left with minus 5x plus 6. And if you take a look, x minus 2 and negative 5x plus 6 does not match. So that means grouping didn't quite work. And grouping doesn't always work, but grouping is one of the fastest methods. If you notice a pattern where you can't group it, go ahead and use grouping. But in this case, since it doesn't match, we have to find another method. So this is one of the methods that the Khan Academy videos do not talk about, so I'm going to talk about it here. So one theorem that mathematicians have come up with is such that the possible real roots consist of the factors of two numbers, and the two numbers is, one of the numbers is the last number, so the coefficient of the term without a power of x, so here in this case it would be 6, and the factors of the highest order term, so in this case x to the third power is your highest power term, and the coefficient of x cubed is 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the factors of 6, and then I'm going to divide them by the factors of 1. And dividing these two, dividing the factors of 6 and the factors of 1 is going to give me possible real roots. So they're just possible ones that I can test it from, but I don't know that they are the real roots yet. So what are factors of 6? They are 1, 2, 3, and 6. You might think that is all, but do not forget you also have negative factors in this case, so we're adding more possibilities. So negative 1 times negative 6 is 6. So technically in this case we're going to include it as part of our factors. What about factors of 1? Well, 1 times 1 is 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is also 1. So here I have 1 and negative 1. Now if I divide those, there's a lot of different combinations, but you'll notice that if I take 1 divided by 1, I get 1. 1 divided by negative 1, I'll get negative 1. 2 divided by 1 gives me 2, 2 divided by negative 1 gives me negative 2, etc. If I keep going down on this line, negative 1 divided by 1 is negative 1, negative 1 divided by negative 1 is 1. So if I keep dividing all the combination of the top numbers divided by the bottom numbers, this is actually the list of numbers that I get. So 1, 2, 3, 6, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 6. So rather than testing out all of the numbers from negative infinity to infinity, we've narrowed it down to a possible 8 numbers, these 8 here. So how do you check to see which of these are actually a real root? So the numbers we found here were just possible real roots. How do we check which one it is? Well, a couple different ways of checking. I wrote a list out on the left here. Different methods to check. One is you can plug it in, or you can use long division on each of them. Or there's this third method called synthetic division, and you should have seen that in the Khan Academy video I had linked for the first video. So, using the first method, I'm going to just go ahead and plug it in. So starting off with my first one, my first real root, I'm going to try it out. I plug it into my equation, x cubed minus 2x squared minus 5x plus 6. Plugging that in, I get 1 squared minus 2 times 1 squared. 1 cubed minus 2 times 1 squared minus 5 times 1 plus 6, simplifying that down, and I get it equal to 0. And that's what I'm looking for. When I'm looking for the root, I'm looking for a number when I plug it in and I get 0. So that means 1 is a root. So if 1 is a root, that means I can take this polynomial here and factor out x minus 1. But the question is, once I factor out x minus 1, what is left over here? That I have to find out. So how do I figure this out? Well, one method is you can use long division. So taking this polynomial divided by x minus 1 to figure out what's inside this question mark. I'm going to go ahead and not do that. Long division is a very long process. If you looked in the video above, synthetic division is a faster way of doing long division. But actually, synthetic division does same thing as long division. It just feels a little bit faster. Okay, so here's my synthetic division work. And for synthetic division, I want to write out the coefficients of my polynomial that I'm trying to divide. So here I have 1, -2 matches up with that x squared, -5 matches up here, 6 I put here. Okay, so once I write these 4 numbers out, the real root that I already know is 1. So that means I can bring this one down here, and I do 1 multiplied by 1, and I put that number here, 1. -2 plus 1 is equal to -1. And then I go ahead and multiply this 1 again with -1. So 1 times -1 gives me this -1 here. And then -5 minus 1 gives me that -6. Multiplying again 1 times that -6, I'm going to put that product here. And I have 6 minus 6, and that's equal to 0. So that means 1 is a real root, because I don't have a remainder, which is great. What do I have left? My leftover is this 1 is going to correspond with my x squared. This -1 corresponds with my minus x. This -6 corresponds with my minus 6. So that means, scrolling down, when I take this polynomial here, x cubed minus 2x squared minus 5x plus 6, one of the factors is x minus 1. And when I do divide the polynomials, what I have left over, as found in my synthetic division, is that x squared minus x minus 6. Now, I notice that this is not a linear factor yet. This x minus 1 is a linear factor, but this x squared minus x minus 6 is not a linear factor. It is quadratic. Therefore, I need to keep factoring. So factoring this out, you can use a variety of methods, box method, diamond method, whatever you know. And once you factor it out, you will get x minus 3 times x plus 2. And at this point, you'll notice 1, 2, 3. I have 3 linear factors. They are all linear because x is to the power of 1. Looking good. And that is my solution. As a follow-up question, I might ask you, well, now that you've gone into linear factors, what are the roots? The roots in this case is equal to 1, corresponding to that x minus 1, 3, corresponding to x minus 3, -2, corresponding to x plus 2. Most common error is to flip the signs, but this is the correct answer because if it's a root, that means when I take this 1 and I plug it into that x minus 1, I should get 0. So 1, you plug it in, you get 1 minus 1, which is 0. Great, that's a root. Okay, if you have any questions, make sure you ask. This is a video summarizing how to factor out a cubic polynomial. And as a bonus, you might notice that this is actually the solution to number 2A on your homework. So congrats, you've just finished number 2A. Good luck on the rest of the homework, and that's all.